It starts another day. I think this is day 15 of the 100-day project on the human-centered ocean industry. And today I'm lucky enough to talk with Lena Göthberg, who I met at North Shipping in 2019, I believe it was. And I know that you've interviewed some of the most amazing people in the ocean space and in maritime. And I want to get your reflections and talk about your perception of the ocean industry and what those shapes and segments of the ocean industry look like. I know you got a brief chance to look at my Venn diagram and small map, and I know that even having worked in the ocean industry since 2004, I have blind spots, and there's parts of the industry that I don't see and that may be unfamiliar to me. And I'm really, and even the people watching this, and I think that it will be important to explore those dark areas that we don't see. So thanks for coming. You can explain a little bit about what you do if people don't know you, but I think a lot of people know you. And then we'll get into it.
Okay. Thank you, Jacqueline, for inviting me and having me on your project. My name is Lena Göthberg. I live in Gothenburg, so it's not Miss Gothenburg, but my name is Lena Göthberg. I am the host and the producer of the Shipping Podcast, which I started in 2015 because I realized the potential of having a podcast to spread the word about the maritime industry, and that I know so many people that I wanted the rest of the world to know what they know. So I invite them to my podcast, and I release one new episode every other Friday. And I have released, tomorrow is the 209th episode. I don't know. I have been working with, I have studied law, and I have been working with marine insurance. And on top of that, I have also been responsible for the Institute of Shipping Analysis in Gothenburg, which was an organization dealing with business intelligence for the maritime industry.
Well, I'm going to pull up my things because then I'll have something there. Um, when you think about the ocean industry, what kind of segments come to mind for you?
Well, of course, deep sea. I mean, if I'm supposed to have a look at your map here, of course.
You can look at the map, or you can look at the Venn diagram, because here I was trying to break things into groupings. So I have like operational assets and operators versus kind of professional services versus kind of governance. And in the new one, which I didn't update here, I have the crewing and training kind of in between the professional services and the owner operator. Um,
Yeah, I was thinking you're not following the money. Maybe you should. So
mm,
banks and insurance companies came to my mind. I might be have some prejudice, I don't know, but I think it's a lot of assets sailing around if you're talking about the shipping industry. And
that's my bias coming in. I have an operational bias.
you need to think about where does the capital come from? Who is lending the money to the ship owner? Which is important because I think depending on the size of your company, the big ones have, of course, access to capital either through banks or other financial institutes, or yeah, it comes with the business, so to say.
Mhm.
But the smaller ones, I mean, the medium-sized ship owner owns maybe 10 ships.
Mhm.
So maybe you have a mortgage on your house. I don't know to start with, but so finance is important because that is also a new way to regulate, I think, because of the ESG that is
Mhm.
coming up. Um, so to lend some money in a bank, you need to
Mhm.
live up to some regulations. You need to be environmentally strong and socially and ESG.
Hmm.
So I think that is important. And then on top of that, I'm a little bit more prejudiced because then I think
Hmm.
insurance and risk, because insurance is the risk that you're not you don't want to take it on your own balance sheet, but you want someone else to carry it.
Hmm.
So there is you need to analyze the risks in your company and then decide which one am I going to insure. And yeah, the insurance market has their own way of looking upon risks and ship owners and transport and cargo and all of that. So I think it's insurance. I think it's important. Sorry.
Hmm. How do you think that finance, insurance, and risk kind of fit into model of the industry? Do you think that they're the framework that they everything else latches into? Do you think that they're in some way maybe the enforcement of the governance and regulatory models? Do you think that they're a professional service into the industry? Because of course, finance, insurance, and risk are industries in themselves that supports all of the other industries, depending on what you want to define as an industry.
Yeah,
Um,
it's more of a service, I think, but they have moved. If you are looking upon some kind of development and change, I think
mhm.
it's moving because they need to become more aware of all the things. I mean, if you're lending money to a ship owner, you need to know what they're doing. But
Yes.
then again, I mean, with all the new regulation and the demands that the banks have on them, they need
Mhm.
to know where they are lending their money. So
Mhm.
it's shifting a bit more towards they are not putting up all the regulations and things like that. But I think there is a change.
Where do you think they're getting their knowledge from or their information from? Because they're not necessarily getting it from observing operations. Do you think that the media or maritime media has some influence?
No, banks are much more involved in the business where they are lending money, so they have their own experts. But yeah, long time ago when I was more involved in this, every bank had a ship finance portfolio, and those people working there were very much involved in the business of the ship owner. And I mean, first you need to know who is the ship owner, and then you need to know a lot about how do they keep the maintenance of their ships? What are the ships? Where are they trading? I mean, it's the same questions that as you put up as an underwriter for hull insurance or P&I insurance. So you need to. I am of the opinion that when I was an underwriter, I knew a lot of about the ship owners that I was insuring,
Mhm.
because that was my way of sort of calculating the risk and knowing where to see if there was a possible risk or not.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then on your map, I was also thinking about satellite companies. They are a service as well, but I was thinking about connectivity, which will
Yes.
become so important. Is important, but will become more important.
Did I put it on this one? No. No, I didn't. But yes,
So
that is very important. And I did miss it.
satellites and connectivity and machine to machine and it also has an impact on the seafarers and working on a ship and staying on a ship and
Yeah,
all
of
of that.
course.
Mm.
Yeah,
And then
they,
I'm a nerd, so I wanted to add startups and incubators and things like that.
yes. But startups and incubators can run into, and I didn't even put, like, I work in the technology and it's not here either. So, see, sees how many blind spots I have. Uh,
I think I've got so many blind spots. I've been working in this industry for 25 years and I have so many blind spots, which I mean, I can hide it when I interview people because they are
yes.
telling me what I don't know, which is very good for me. And also, I learn a lot, and people are so generous in sharing their knowledge. Don't you
Mhm.
agree?
I do agree, and I think that that's one of the interesting things with. running this project is that I'm able to explore what I don't know that I don't know, and even those things that I know that I don't remember necessarily, or don't come front of mind, and be able to kind of poke into those sore spots and find a path forward, which I think is really, really interesting, because overall the ambition with this project is to try to find a way to co-collaborate on a path forward that we could have, together as an industry, to make it more human-centered, and to really not only improve my day-to-day work in design for technology, but also to improve how we should and could work together, for some of the boards that I sit on, and different parts of the industry that will have an impact on how the work is designed going forward. Because it's not just about technology and engineering it into existence. It's also about how it will be embedded in the future work life going forward, and how task splits happen, and how to really construct the future that we want to have, being smooth and safe and sustainable and inclusive, and not just existing because we can engineer it to exist. Which is the point of the project. But I don't know if I'll be successful or not, but at least I get to go through this process and maybe learn things, and maybe share knowledge with the people who watch or interact with all of these artifacts that I'm making, to see where we might fill in each other's blind spots.
So then you need to add schools and universities and education.
I have it on the other one, education, but I don't have schools and universities. I didn't update this one, and I only realized that after I had invited you on the
No
call.
problem, no problem. Because I'm thinking about the next generation. That is something that I'm very focused on. We need to show them how amazing it is to work in this industry. And then I think about schools, and then I think, do we use new kinds of education tools into? I mean, I want you to think about that as well.
Simulators.
Yeah, but
I
is
used a
that
lot
is
when I
that all?
was. Yeah, it might be.
Um,
But I
yeah,
was equally taught Loran, which is no longer a broadcast. It was on its way out long before I sat for my license.
yeah.
Radio Direction Finder and DECA. It also died out by the time I was taking the exams, but it's still on my exams.
Yeah, so in a way, do we use the tools for the future when we are educating the young people who will be there for a long time? I mean, as you said, it was not accurate when once you were finished.
No. But I think there's a big lag there. I think that it
Yeah,
takes a lot of time for it to catch up, because by the time, they spend 2 or 3 years designing a course, it's already 3 years old.
yeah.
And the people are in school for 4 years, and then they go out. So by the time their senior course has been rewritten, it's already 4, 5, 6 years out of date.
I would like to tell you that, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, a long time ago, I was part of a project in Sweden where we were working on a maritime strategy, which
Mhm.
was sort of, we found out that the EU has a maritime strategy,
Mhm.
and sort of expected the government in Sweden to have the same, to have a Swedish maritime strategy, which they didn't. So we decided to do it for them and give that to them. However, I don't think it was that much of a result, if I can be
Mhm.
blunt. But on the other hand, it was it's so, I learned a lot by understanding how people who has, I mean, for instance, the EU, they have a maritime strategy, and they do not look upon the maritime industry or shipping as we do,
Mhm.
which is very interesting to stand on the sideline and look into and see, what are they thinking about here? Maybe I can learn something new. And for me, it was like, we are so siloed in our industry. And I think maybe that would be your result at the end, that we should be more ecosystem and working together in different ways than we do now. But there were so many things in that maritime strategy that we sort of had to sit down and think about. Oh, how does that work in our country? That relates to how they are viewing it, because that is also part of some capital. I mean,
Mhm.
there is money within the EU system for research and for yeah, supporting projects and innovation and things like that. But if you're not talking the same language, I mean, if I look upon the maritime industry in one way and the politicians is looking in the other way, maybe we never meet.
Yeah, it's true. The ocean is a very big place. You can sail plenty ships before they see each other,
Yep, yep,
just not on the same route.
no. So that is important. Um, yeah. What else were you?
What do you think is or has shaped the industry into the shape that it is, into the silos? What do you think is keeping those silos alive?
I think it's a tradition. It's a culture. It's I mean, not everyone can be like me. I'm curious for three times the people. I mean, it takes time to understand what someone else is doing and to be walk in some other person's shoes to see
Mhm.
what they are seeing. And I'm not sure that you take that time. If you are a ship
Mhm.
owner, you are busy with just understanding your business and making sure it's successful. That
Mhm.
is one part, I think. But on the other hand, if we were forced into working in ecosystems, it might be easier.
Mhm.
I've also been involved in a project called Zero Vision Tool, which was also 7-8 years ago, run by the Swedish Ship Owners Association, and that was a triple helix project,
Mhm.
which means that it was industry, uh, university, authorities
Mhm.
working together, and
Mhm.
this was when the SECA rules came into
Mhm.
force. So preparing for that, um, we had ship owners that was in need of buying new ships or ordering new ships.
Mhm.
And what kind of machinery should they order? Were there
Mhm.
any alternatives to the old fashioned? Yeah, how could they live up to the new sulfur rules and so on? So we had the possibility of making a platform where people from the authorities who takes decisions on things
Mhm.
and the ship owners who are supposed to live up to these regulations met in real life. And
Mhm.
once they met, they both went back thinking, aha, this is why it doesn't work. Because all of a sudden they could see each other, they can understand each other, and then they could understand where the other person was coming from. Or so I think that is part of it, that we have a tendency, we love our business, we love the maritime industry, we're such passionate people, but we are not really passionate about the other ones in our industry.
Mhm.
I remember when we started this EU maritime strategy thing, we were 50 people in a room in the university for 4 hours discussing the difference between shipping and maritime,
Mhm.
and we couldn't agree.
No.
There's so many people in there and so much knowledge, but we couldn't agree on the first step.
That's why I took it very broad at ocean industry. I'm like, well, everything on the ocean, but also the inland waterways, so connected as well.
Yeah, so it's but if you talk to someone, a friend of yours who is not in the maritime industry, they probably don't understand the difference between, they just think it's water,
Yeah.
it's a sea. What are you talking about? What's the difference?
That's true.
And maybe that is how politicians are looking upon us.
Possibly, but then sometimes get it confused with logistics or other kind of multimodal industries as well, because it's not necessarily that the same people are linked in the multimodal sense, even though the customer is, and the customer viewpoint is from that perspective. The other viewpoint is no, that's the ports, that's shore stuff. This is the shipping stuff. But all
Yeah.
of it is, in the end, some kind of transportation. And I had grouped things as kind of production versus transport versus construction versus expedition and naval and pleasure and passengers.
So you are siloing it.
A little bit, but it's more for ease of understanding because otherwise we get stuck into, well, no, that's an LPG tanker instead of an LNG tanker instead of a chemical tanker instead of a product tanker instead of a. It gets a
So
little complicated if we.
where did you put the cargo owners, the buyers of the transport? Are
I
they in
put
there?
them kind of here, but not the buyers of the transport. I didn't put the customers here, so I'm missing customers also.
Because I mean, if I'm buying cargo, buying transport of my cargo, I don't. Yeah, of course I'm interested if it's on water or on land or by. But at the end of the day, I need my goods to go from A, and maybe that is a new view that we need to take. Are we better or worse than road transport? What would it take for them to choose shipping by sea?
But it was interesting actually. On I think it was day 12, I talked to Antoon Van Cooley. Have you talked to him before?
No?
So he had Zulu Associates, which we worked on a project with them. That's having their demonstrator done in June on an autonomous inland waterway barge. And it's interesting how he's looking at doing inland transportation, and he's directly competing with trucks. That's his game, which is really, really interesting. You can see it's on my website and on LinkedIn, and you can find it. But he's quite interesting in his take on it because I want to talk to him because he has a different viewpoint than I do for this. Because my viewpoint is either from kind of LNG FSRU perspective or from car carriers and um, bulk metal transport and those kind of things, and or from where I sit now in the technology manufacturer. But I don't have the viewpoint of inland waterways or tugs, or I'm talking to someone next week for aquaculture, which should be interesting. But there's so much that I know that I don't know, and I discover more and more every single day.
No, but it's interesting. When I speak to people who work in the logistic chain, they say, "Yeah, you're so far behind. You need to up your game." If I'm, and also everyone always keeps saying, "I can buy an airline trip online through a
Mhm.
website. When can I do the same for
What's
cargo
this
shipping?"
chartering and brokerage thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Why does this contract look like it's a photocopy with glued on pieces from 1920?
yeah, yeah. Agree.
Because it
But
is.
yeah, but I think there are people working on that for digital solutions as well, which is something we need before we can move any further.
Of course. I even things that should be simple like port papers and reporting is still uh, scanned copies of PDFs that you then have to print out in triplicate to give to the port authority. Depending on where you are in the world, it can be even worse. Maybe you have to get 10 copies.
Did you put pilots on your
I
chart?
did not put pilots on my charts. I'm finding all kinds of things. It's good.
I saw a picture yesterday or today of only female pilots in the US. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, they were the ones from Florida. No?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think you should have. I don't know if you have international governance and regulators. EU should be there if you haven't put them there.
I don't have EU there. I have international, I have IMO, ILO, and UN. But and I have etc., which gives me
Yeah,
forgiveness.
etc. It's like EU.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's at this moment in time. I think it's important because of
No, I think you're right.
the I shouldn't be saying the race, but the difference or the things between IMO and EU is important. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. The coming from the US, I see also the US in a similar light as EU for the same reason that it's a whole bunch of countries collected together that have all their own laws and all their own regulations and all their own ports authorities and all their own everything, but also gathered together into a big conglomerate that doesn't agree with itself.
You should have International Chamber of Shipping there, because
Ah,
that is
yes, ICS.
all the national ship owners associations from all over the world
Would you put them
gather
with the
in there.
industry bodies or with the governance and regulators?
Industry bodies,
I think so, yeah.
I would say. But then you have also got the cargo buyers. They have an international association as well. I can't remember the name. I'm sorry. This is live, so I can't
Yeah.
remember.
No, it's okay. It's okay if you can't remember. Maybe someone will help us out and put a comment at some point. But,
yeah, and classification societies, they are in IAX, so they should be on there.
But they're in the middle because I see them as kind of, they work a lot of the time for the owner of the vessels, and then they're also a professional service in some case, and then they're also a governance regulator in some case. So I kind of put them in the overlapping space of the Venn diagram.
Maybe that's where the banks and the finance, I don't know, should be.
Maybe that is exactly where they should go, because they're financing both the professional services and the kind of insurance side versus the regulatory. Yeah, it's a good place to put them, maybe.
And don't forget lawyers.
No, but I have lawyers. They're here, the Admiralty Law and the professional services.
Yeah, but
'Cause
I was thinking
have,
about I was thinking about international conventions, sort of law of the high seas, and those kind of things. So there are different.
But I put this up in the governance and regulators, because if I was going to list every regulation that applied to shipping,
no, can't be done.
No, it's new every day.
Yeah.
And if you try to do the national ones, it grows faster than you can write it, I think.
Yes. But on the other hand, it's important to know, because if you know the national ones compared to the international ones, then you see that there is usually somewhere room for improvements on both sides.
I mean, even if you think of something that's been around since the 70s, the collision regulations, the US has their own with their own special lights, and I needed to memorize all of them for my license. And Canada has their own as well. So if you're going to sail in the Great Lakes, then you have even more, because you have the international ones sometimes, you have Canada sometimes, and you have US sometimes. And for some reason, they're still not all the same.
No, because the US doesn't sign on to the same rules. I think they are not signing on to IMO. I can't remember. There is something there, which means that they have their own regulation.
Yeah,
but it's the same.
Even the international regulations say that it doesn't matter if they're their own country; they can put it on their own inland waterways, even if they sign on. And because of that, we still have different lights and different regulations for different lights in different waters.
In Sweden, we actually did an exemption from EU regulations a long time ago, which means that we are now stuck with something we don't want. So, yeah. Someone needs to take an overview and do this with the different regulations only for 100 days.
Yeah. I think there's more than enough to cover that way. But I don't know that other people are as overly ambitious as I am to put this kind of project on my head.
I agree.
But it's fun, and I'm learning, so it's good.
I understand that. So is that the next step, to put in media in here?
Yes, media is another step to put in here. And I'm talking to Holly Burkett on Friday, so then I should get some more media perspective.
Yeah, because there's a difference between industry media, where she probably will be representing more, and how my soapbox, how we brand ourselves as an industry towards other people.
Well, and I could even see that, like, if we were to talk to someone from BBC that's just covering shipping sometimes from the outside, like when they covered the Ever Given accident, what their perspective would be completely different from everyone inside the industry who's like, yeah, that can happen. Um, it shouldn't happen, but it could happen.
Or the guy who set up that website where everyone went to see the latest news on Ever Given. Well,
Yeah,
I should try and get hold of him and see if he wants to share something.
yeah. There's so many interesting things, but I have to go to the little person pickup soon. So I only had a half hour in the
Yeah,
afternoon.
no
I'm
problem.
trying to get this in on the end caps of my day job, so before and after.
I
But
hope I could give you some food for thoughts anyhow. So
I have already a page of notes and a lot of things that I didn't think about before, which is really good because I didn't think actually to follow the money. And I think that that's something that I'm going to dig into this evening when I do the write up from this and kind of do some more exploration there because I think that I've missed a big section here. And I'm really glad that you pointed it out. But thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me about
thank
my
you.
small project and the ocean
Best of
industry in
luck.
general.
Best of luck, and look forward to seeing a little bit of the results once you're
Thanks.
finalized.
I'm putting every day the write up and stuff on my website so you can kind of follow
Yep,
from there. But this
good.
is day 15 of 100, so yeah. I should
That's
finish it up just before North shipping.
that's very good. That's
Although I
very
did
good.
miss one day, so then it's going a day longer than it should have been. But travel disrupted my schedule. It
You can
happens.
cheat a little bit and do two in one day, and then you are still on schedule.
Yeah, I was thinking to do that in the weekend, and actually yesterday I did a post at 4 a.m. and then I was like, maybe I'll do one in the afternoon, and then I did not. I took a nap, so I have my limitations, but it's good at least.
We all have that way of
Yeah.
doing things. Procrastination. That's
Yeah.
the name of the game.
But it's a practice, so I
Yep,
have 100 of these to do, and hopefully one every day. But yeah, I'm human, so it happens. And no one else is administrating or helping me with this in any way. It's just me. So thank you so much for talking to me, and I hope to talk to you soon. And maybe I'll see you at She if you're coming, or maybe I'll see you at North Shipping if you're coming. And have a great rest of the afternoon.
thank you very much.
Thank you.